Of course, we've got the big final presidential debate tonight. Kristen Welker will be moderating. Usually the third debate is foreign policy, but she's chosen a number of other topics that they're going to explore tonight. The president did decide to attend, so that will be happening starting at 9 p.m. And on the eve of the debate, heading into the debate, we've got a whole bunch of new battleground polling that we wanted to bring to you and some interesting dynamics that you can see playing out. Let's start with the CNN polling here. They took a look at Pennsylvania and Florida, and that shows the margins there. They find that Pennsylvania, Joe Biden has a double-digit lead, 10 points. That is a big deal because, as we've been telling you here, Pennsylvania is maybe the most crucial and determinative state. I will say CNN's polls have tended to be good for Joe Biden, so it's probably not 10-point margin there, but still a good result from him. Florida, quite a bit closer. This is a state that obviously Trump needs to win in order to win the White House. We had some additional polling come out yesterday as well. This was New York Times Siena of Iowa likely voters, giving Joe Biden a little bit of an edge in Iowa, which is a big deal. And we've been covering here how the Senate race there has also been shifted by Larry Sabato's crystal ball to lean D, which is a massive deal here. You see the Senate race. This is actually a pretty good result for Joni Ernst, who's been down by 4 or 5 points in a lot of the polling coming out. It's a state that Trump won by 9 points back in 2016. We also have some new Fox News polls. Let's just put them all up there so you see everything. Trump is actually winning in Ohio, which, shouldn't be a big deal for him at this point, but apparently now it is. But horrific result for him in Michigan, closer results in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin.
That's right.
Saagar, one of the things that I saw analysts pointing out is because you have this unique dynamic of so many people voting early and so many Democrats voting early. So if you tell pollsters, like, not only am I likely to vote, but I have already voted, what they're finding is now the likely voter models are actually a benefit to Biden because you have those people locked in. So a lot of the likely voter results versus the all registered voter results are favoring Biden even more than that just general pool of registered voters, which is different than typically it's the opposite.
Yeah, it's literally the opposite.
Usually Republicans do better. Democrats do better if you just have the whole broad pool of all registered voters, and Republicans usually do better when you narrow it down to, okay, who is actually going to vote? And so there's two dynamics here. One is more Democrats actually having already voted, and two is who are the most reliable voters? Seniors.
Yes.
And they have swung decisively in a lot of cases to Joe Biden and to the Democratic Party. So that is giving them a very unusual edge in those likely voter screens.
And the other issue is that whenever it comes to voting by mail, you can actually see that amongst registered Republicans, as an Economist YouGov poll that just came out, about 65% of them said that they disapprove of voting that way, which is a kind of a terrific own goal because that's the easiest way for seniors to vote. And so, how many of these seniors are actually going to be compelled to go out and vote on Election Day or in person with early voting? There is just not a lot of confidence that you can say that will be there. But we should also throw out this note. Massive level of uncertainty and volatility.
Yes.
With this amount of early voting numbers, I see analyst after an analyst saying, I don't know how this factors into my models. Like you said, since when does a likely voter screen help Joe Biden? Because these are people who have already voted in a certain way. And then we don't know what the turnout is going to be on Election Day itself. And so you can see that in these states where the margins are tight, Florida in particular, North Carolina, Iowa, Georgia, elsewhere, that is where the turnout actually on Election Day will matter even more.
Yeah.
And it also depends on when they can start counting their ballots. It really does all come down to Florida. It's kind of incredible, which is that because they can start counting before Election Day. If it goes Biden, the election is pretty much over.
So I talked to Julia Manchester Hill, reporter, who's been down in Florida reporting on their early vote. And that interview is actually going to air this weekend. You can check out. And she had some great data there. But she said, the mail-in vote had been overwhelmingly Democratic, but the early in-person vote was basically split.
Right.
50-50. And she said, in part, Florida has a tradition, and seniors in particular, of taking advantage of that early in-person vote. So I thought that was an interesting dynamic. dynamic. And I would caution you against reading too much into. I mean, we're seeing all these headlines about record turnout, record early vote in all those states, and a lot of trying to read into what exactly that means. I don't think that we can say anything about it, to be honest with you, because it is such an unusual and unprecedented situation. Here's what I would say, and this is one other piece of information, make of it what you will. Apparently the betting odds for Trump,
Vegas.
He's doing better with the betting odds, however you say that properly, than he was before.
The Vegas line.
People who are betting on this election are starting to think more that Trump has a little bit of a shot. Joe Biden's still favored by the betting markets, but Trump is sort of coming up in terms of his odds of probability, which I think makes sense. We have seen maybe a tiny bit of tightening in the polls, especially in some of the battleground states, but I thought what Kyle Kulinski said to us the other day was really interesting and very insightful, which is that even if you had a level of polling error like 2016, you would still have an overwhelming Biden win. Like, not even close. Electorally, not even close. So it really would take a massive poll error at this point for Trump to be able to pull it off. More of a polling error than we had back in 2016. Of course, he's going to try to make something happen at the debate tonight, but I don't know that there's anything that could really move the needle because people are so locked in. It's just a matter of who you can get to turn out ultimately.
Yeah, I think that's right, and we're going to see. So we'll watch the debate tonight. It's in Nashville.
You think he's going to adjust his approach?
So, I mean, that's what the Trump campaign told me yesterday when I interviewed them.
They may want him, but they didn't want him to take that approach to start with.
He was like, I think the president would even admit that he was too aggressive. I was like, first of all, have you met this guy? I was like, he would not do that.
He would never admit anything.
Yeah. So he was like, I think that you'll see a little bit more of a cautious approach with Joe Biden. And I was like, okay, maybe. We'll see.
I actually think he may. I mean, for one thing, they did put in, Kristen Welker does not have the ability to unilaterally mute their mics.
Right.
But their mics will be muted during the initial 2-minute answer that they have free and clear. And I know the Trump campaign people were mad about that. They didn't like that. I actually think it may kind of benefit him, because then it just prohibits him from being able to be quite as obnoxious as he was. And Joe Biden was not in a position to be able to beat him in that first debate. It was Trump who defeated himself, so he'll have less of a chance to shoot himself in the foot. It might actually be a good dynamic for him. I suspect he'll be more effective than he was the first time around. He could hardly be less effective than he was the first time around.
I think that's exactly right.
All right, we'll have more Rising for you after this.